Hey everybody, welcome back to the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. I'm your host, Gordo Gambles, and welcome back to another full card breakdown. This time for UFC Kansas City. We have ourselves 14 fights on tap for us this week, and actually a pretty interesting card, especially from a DraftKings perspective. But before we do so, please hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. I mean, last week was a tough one. It started with that Carl Williams, had a lot of exposure to that fight, and that did get canceled off the bat. And then Raul Rosas Jr., I trusted an 18-year-old, and he did go out there and underestimate his opponent. Cardio did not hold up. Same thing with Amarim, and that made for a pretty tough night. We did call some good shots on Garcia. We did call some good shots on Font, but I'm ready to bounce back. And I said, don't waste any more time. Let's dive into these 14 fights here. Starting with the very first one of the night, we have the 12-4 Jocelyn Edwards versus the 14-7 Lucy Pudilova. And when I'm talking about trying to come back and make some money, bouncing back off a tougher week last week, this is not the way I want to do it. This is not one where I kind of want to go out there and talk about this fight on long ends, because this isn't one I want to have too much ownership on. I think if we look from this fight from a macro perspective, and we're talking about overall just picking winners, right? That's all you got to do, pick winners. Lucy Pudilova has more tools to do so. She displayed some wrestling last time out. She displayed some good volume in her pass, and she is a very good kickboxer. But I think that overall, her style is someone you can't really trust that well, because she's never been a wrestler. Sure, she displayed it last time, but never before that. And Jocelyn Edwards, someone who is pretty physically imposing, who will have the longer reach in the spot here, and who has shown a decent tendency to defend certain takedowns, especially against a novice wrestler like Pudilova. She may be able to stuff them. So although Pudilova has more advantages to get it done, is she someone I want to trust at a minus 170 price tag? Definitely not. And of course, she is coming down to minus 135. Now the line is getting better, and I still think she's going to be the one I'm going to pick to win because of her Dieville skill set. She has the ability to mix it up on the feet, throw more volume, win the minutes that way, and also threaten takedowns. I think she should be favored. But she's not someone at this point of her career who I can trust. Neither of these fighters are someone who I want to get behind from a DraftKings perspective as well. I think to add to that, Jocelyn Edwards is going to be a very, very low owned fighter of mine, because at 7.6K, she's scoring 76, 99, and 82 in her wins. This is not someone I think is going to go out there and grapple proactively, not someone who I think is going to get a finish at a high clip. So in a 50-minute kickboxing affair, she's not someone I'm looking for at 7.6. However, she does have a decent chance to win. What I'm trying to say here is this is not a fight I want a big financial investment on. Neither of these fighters I see being title contenders anytime soon. I don't think they're that trustworthy, and for that reason, I don't really want to play them from either a betting perspective or a DraftKings perspective. But as a content creator, gun to my head, I'm taking Lucy Pudilova. I think she has more tools to get it done. I think that if anyone's going to score well on DraftKings, it's going to be if she's able to implement a good takedown game. Aside from that, I think on the feet, she's able to land more volume, win the decision at a pretty high clip. I don't see much of a finish here, so a decision on either side. Do you really want to trust the judges? I don't think so. Either way, give me Lucy Pudilova in a close affair. Speaking of not being trustworthy, we have the 12-4 Aaron Phillips versus the 6-3 Gaston Bolanos. Gaston Bolanos making his UFC debut, has fought in Bellator. He is an all-action fighter with a 100% finish rate. That's what I want to see. That's what I'm looking for here on DraftKings. We've got a couple other fighters like that who are killer to be killed. Kind of seems to be that guy. Aaron Phillips, we haven't really seen him either. 0-3 in the UFC. Last time he fought in the UFC was in 2020 when he got choked out by Mr. Jack Shore, someone who I was lucky to cash a bet on in that spot. And before that, he fought in 2014. This guy has not done that well in the UFC. He's not someone who has been fighting too actively, and after 3 years, almost, he's here making his return. And this is a much better matchup for Aaron Phillips, let's put it that way. Prior to this, he was taken down 5 times by Celia, 6 times by Hobart, and 3 times by Jack Shore, and finish. He has a hole in his ground game, and although he is a pretty technical striker, he wasn't able to show that in his UFC so far. He's finally getting a striker, someone that will stand and bang with him, and I think that this guy here in Bolanos is going to bring him the fight he wants. With that being said, Aaron Phillips is not a trustworthy guy. He doesn't seem like his heart's completely in it. He doesn't seem like he's had that same desire to fight anymore, and even in a 15-minute kickboxing affair, I still think Bolanos has fought the better level of competition. And when I say fought, I'm not counting this Jack Shore fight. When they didn't really fight, I mean, Aaron Phillips only landed 6 strikes. I'm talking about real cage experience. One where they're able to talk about kickboxing. I think Bolanos has been in there with some decent guys, has shown that he has some good output, some very, very good power, and will be landing the more explosive shots. Overall, sure, it's hard to trust Bolanos at a huge favorite price tag, considering this is his first UFC fight against a decent opponent here in Phillips. And sure, Phillips has the opportunity to throw volume and mix it up on the feed, and have the opportunity to hit the chin of Bolanos himself. But realistically, when we're looking to pick a winner here, I do think Bolanos is going to be landing the flashier shot, winning the minutes on the optics at least as well. And in a 15-minute kickboxing affair, I think he does get his hand raised a lot of the time. Now, here's the thing. Combined, these fighters have very, very high finish rates. These guys are killer to be killed. They bring the action, and they have been finished in a lot of not only their wins, but also their losses. So an under may be the way to go for this one. But at 9.2K, when I don't really have that same grappling upside, when I don't know if I necessarily have the output upside from Bolanos as well, do I really want to trust this guy to get a knockout? Because if he doesn't, he's scoring maybe max 85 points. With no takedown upside, no control upside, and very little grappling upside in general, Bolanos is not someone I'm really running to go roster at 9.2K. Instead, maybe look to take an under here or pass in this fight completely. There's no problem with passing just because of all the uncertainties you have in this matchup. But I'm picking a winner here. I do think Bolanos gets it done. I think he's the hungrier fighter, and he'll be having the optics edge here in order to win this fight. Next up, 8-2-1 Bruno Brazil versus the 6-2 Denis Gomes. A fun clash at 115, two prospects here, and there's a lot to be seen from these fighters. I think neither of them are people who are going to be contending for a title anytime soon, but they're building themselves. They're both young, and I do think that they're going to have a path in this matchup here, especially against each other. Now, Brazil is a very, very technical kickboxer. I think she's going to be winning all the minutes on the feet, and it comes down to the grappling of Denis Gomes. And when I'm thinking here and I'm looking, I'm saying, okay, Brazil's going to win all the striking. That isn't necessarily because Brazil is that amazing, but Gomes doesn't seem to be the best striker on right. She gets hit by anything, and sure, she's tough as hell. She's not going to be winning the optics there. Neither is she going to be winning the striking exchanges at a high clip. It's going to be her relying on that takedown upside and the grappling upside that she does have. She does have some decent BJJ credentials. She is someone who can flow well in top position. But in order to get it there, you're going to need wrestling. You need a way to get this fighter to the ground. And when Bruno Brazil has decent takedown defense, is going to be the much larger fighter, and has to add some decent offensive wrestling in her own right, I think that she's able to dictate where this fight goes. So sure, the line may be wide on someone of Bruno Brazil who lacks a lot of these skills that you want to see in an up-and-coming prospect. But we're looking at how this fight's going to play out. It's most likely going to be on the feet, where Gomes absorbs a ton of damage. Brazil's going to be winning the optics and should be winning this fight at a pretty high clip as well. On DraftKings, 9.3 is hard to justify for Brazil because I don't think she has as much grappling equity here. I think that if she's doing her tape, she knows I'm going to stay on the feet, I'm going to strike, I'm going to put damage toward the face of someone like Gomes here. So again, just like Bolanos, tough to really want to roster at 9.3. Flip side, I think Gomes is a nice dart throw because she does have that grappling upside. I think if she wants to win this fight, it's going to come by consistent takedowns and or a ground finish. I'm not saying it's likely. It is a dart throw at 6.9K. Next up, 12-6-2 Lando Vannata versus the 12-1 Daniel Zellhuber. I'm going to get the elephant out of the way here. Zellhuber didn't perform last time out. Trey Ogden outstruck him. The nerves were there for Zellhuber. That Zellhuber we got last time is not the same one we saw on tape. That's out of the picture. Now that we can talk about this, although he did perform subpar, to say the least, for Zellhuber, he's getting a step up in competition against a vet like Vannata, a guy who's been in there against some very good fighters who has showed a very well-rounded game set. But this is going to come down to one thing in particular for Zellhuber. What version of him are we getting? Because the version of him that we see on tape in the regional scene displays an immaculate kickboxing game. Some very, very good takedown offense and defense as well, and seems to be able to mix it up where the fight goes. He has great combinations, good volume, good cardio, and decent power in the hands as well, who will be causing problems in this division 155. I do think he has a great skill set for this division. What he doesn't have, though, is that mental fortitude, because it looks like he was a shell of himself. He wasn't that same fighter we saw on tape, and it cost him last time out. What version are we getting? Because I do think that the version we are able to see in the regional scene does beat Lando Vannata, but that's a big if. We know Vannata's going to be in the face. We know he's a durable guy. We know he has good output as well, some decent opportunity to mix up on the ground as well. Vannata can be submitted, and I do think that is a path to victory for Zellhuber as well, but it's all about this consistency, because I do think the more consistent fighter is Lando Vannata, but I think the fighter with more upside is Daniel Zellhuber. So again, when I'm sitting here, gun to my head, who am I going to pick? Well, Daniel Zellhuber is the fighter I see with more upside, and he is one I'm going to be banking on here. I don't like to bank on people's downfall, and I feel like if I'm betting on Lando Vannata, I'm not betting on Lando Vannata, I'm banking on Zellhuber not showing up. So I say it does show up, I say it proves people wrong. Give me Daniel Zellhuber as a buy low spot here. I think there's decent viability on DraftKings as well at the 8.5K price tag. But considering this fight's supposed to go to decision, slide minus 165 to go to the distance, I don't necessarily think he's a must play because it could be a prolonged striking affair. If he does struggle with volume again, he might not be the best option, 8.5, and there are some fighters who you really want to target this week. So Zellhuber, although viable, isn't someone I'm necessarily running to roster this week. And we move on to our Canadian girl, 11-7, Jillian Robertson facing the undefeated 9-0 Piera Rodriguez in a very, very fun scrap. Again, elephant in the room, Jillian Robertson's going down to 115. Woohoo! How great is that? Because Jillian Robertson's someone who, at 125, she would win fights to get people down, but because she was not the most physically imposing person, because her wrestling's not great, she struggled getting people down, and because of that, lost her fights. Well, at this smaller weight division, she will be a bigger fighter, and her wrestling will have more opportunity to succeed. Because we all know that on the ground, Jillian Robertson is a step above the rest. She is a great BJJ artist. Choked out Rose in a grappling event in like 2 minutes earlier this year. The skills on the mat are definitely there for Jillian Robertson. And I think that on the mat, she has a huge advantage over Piera Rodriguez this weekend, who, although is decently physically imposing, fought very close against Sam Hughes. And if she's able to put herself in those same places against Sam Hughes, I think Jillian Robertson takes advantage and submits her. The problem here for Robertson is Rodriguez is decently physically imposing, not the daintiest girl at 115, good hip throws, and then some very good volume on the feet as well. That's what I think too, is the striking is going to go to Rodriguez, but that's always what you kind of expect from Robertson fight. When I'm looking at how this fight's playing out, I think that Jillian Robertson has success at 115. Of course, we're going to have to see her on the scale first, but I do think that she has all the makings to do well this division because her ground game is so good. If she's finally able to get that wrestling going, I do think she's able to cause some problems here. And against someone, Pierre Rodriguez, who's still green, still doesn't face much adversity, I think Robertson shows up this weekend. I think she's able to go out there and submit someone like Rodriguez. Of course, this is no lock, no super max go whale play, but I'll take a shot in the sub. I don't have a lineup for sub right now, but I think she's able to do it. I think she's able to take down Rodriguez, transfer to the back, and submit her the same way she's able to do to so many in the past. Jillian Robertson's a specialist, and I think she shows that against Rodriguez. For that reason, 8.2K on DraftKings, someone I'm really liking in this mid-range because she has finishability. I do think she has takedown upside, and I do think she wins this fight. Flip side of things, Pierre Rodriguez, 8K, no thank you. Like, not much of at all. She's down there with Edwards as my lower ranked fighter just because she shouldn't grapple with Robertson. I think that the best path to victory for Rodriguez is to strike 15 minutes. And what happens when you strike 15 minutes? You don't score that well on DraftKings. And for that reason, not only am I taking Robertson by submission, but I'm taking her as well on DraftKings way more than I am Pierre Rodriguez. Moving on, we have the 24-15 Ed Herman and the 24-7 Zach Cummings. Does it sound like I'm excited for this fight? Yeah, I don't know really what to expect here. I'm going to try to keep this one short. Zach Cummings has not fought since 2020. He has had a hernia on his back, I think it was, some major surgery, and now he's moving up to 205 in front of his home crowd for his retirement fight. You hear the R word, you're thinking, okay, retirement for Cummings off of these surgeries, not training that hard. It's Ed Herman's season. Ed Herman's turning 43 in October. Ed Herman is an old man. Sorry to be ageist here, but Ed Herman is not looking good. He's not someone who I want to back against the majority of any division, really. But it does make this fight a lot closer than the line expected. Because both these guys really struggle when it comes to striking defense, when it comes to striking volume. They are guys who will like to go out there and grapple and look to either counter-strike their way to get there in order to shoot a couple takedowns. Let's make one thing clear. I think that if Zach Cummings is training, he should win this fight. Being the younger fighter, he's someone who has a good ground game to take care of someone who is probably washing Ed Herman, to take him down and add to probably a fifth submission win in a Cinderella story as a retirement. But you can't trust what state he's in. We don't know what state he's in. We don't know how he's showing up. If he walks up Jake Collier style to the scale, up a weight class looking a bit like he just rolled off the couch, he's not somebody you can trust. Add in the fact that at 9.6K on DraftKings, you would have to pay up over Rafa Garcia, over Mateus Nicolau, over Max Holloway to get to him. It's so unappealing. Zach Cummings has only scored over 100 points twice. 2015, 2017. Not only is that 6 years ago, that's before the surgeries, before the injuries, and before the retirement. Zach Cummings, although having the upside of facing a 43-year-old or 42-year-old, the downside is he's not who he used to be. And for that reason, it's really hard for me to roster him at 9.6, although I think I am picking him to win this fight. Flip side of things, that means that Ed Herman, if you do think that Cummings is washed and Cummings is just coming for a check, Herman at 6.6K is a punt play and a half. Because he is old. He made his debut in 2006. He only has a striking defense of 42%. I mean, this guy can get hit, and I think that Zach does have the power still to take care of someone like Ed Herman. With that being said, no financial involvement on this fight, and if you are playing this from a DraftKings perspective, what you have to anticipate is who is more washed at this point in their career, who has more desire to win, who has more tools to do so. And for that reason, I'm picking someone in Cummings, but with no confidence at all. This is one of the scariest fights to predict of the year. So we want to something a lot more fun though. 14-6 raw dog Brandon Royval versus the 19-2-1 Mateus Nicolau. Brandon Royval is an all-action fighter, killer to be killed, and you love to see that from a DraftKings perspective. He's someone who goes out there, balls to the wall with volume, takedowns, great scrambling submission. He thrives on chaos. We're talking about chaos every time he fights. Mateus Nicolau is the opposite. He is a technical fighter, someone who wants to slow the fight down, land some good technical combination, throw in some wrestling if he has to, but he does everything at his own pace, and he does so very, very well. Well, when you got chaos and you got calm, who usually prevails? Well, sometimes you need to find the calm amidst the chaos, and I think that I'm picking to win here is going to be Mateus Nicolau. Although Brandon Royval possesses a great offensive skill set, he has so many defensive liabilities that I think Nicolau can take advantage of. Whether that be Brandon Royval putting himself in a precarious situation on the mat because Royval likes to scramble really fast and Nicolau does have a decent jiu-jitsu game. Or whether it be Brandon Royval implementing his horrible striking defense. I mean, not only does Royval have a 50% striking defense, but he has a 39% takedown defense. So he's not only able to be hit, but able to be taken down and controlled. I think it's very simple. Nicolau has the ability to win minutes and find the off switch of Brandon Royval, who's going to be putting himself in these precarious situations. But Royval is very dangerous, but he is a high risk, high reward fighter. I think Nicolau is able to add risk to that and take advantage of the mistakes Royval makes, and I think he does win this fight. DraftKings wise, you got to have Royval as an underdog though, because every time he wins, he scores very, very well. He put up 96 against Snell, 110 against Kai France, 91 against Elliott. I mean, the guy does have some decent high-scoring potential because he does like to fight in this chaos. 6 fights in the UFC, only one of them has gone to the decision at 125. That's incredible to hear. I think there is some viability for him, but on the same side of things, Nicolau, 9.1, he isn't historically the best DraftKings scorer, but I think he's able to capitalize off those mistakes Royval makes defensively and try to find the off switch there, adding another finish loss to Royval's record. And at 9.1K, I do think he scores decent in doing so. This is a fight I want a lot of ownership in. However, I am picking Nicolau to survive that chaos that Royval brings and find a finish win later on as Royval makes mistakes. Next up, 17-9 TJ Brown versus the 16-7 Bill Algeo, and neither of these guys are trustworthy fighters because I don't think these guys are necessarily the best favorites in the UFC because they're not really consistent and they have holes in their games. However, they are great underdogs. With that out of the way, you have a complete clash of styles here. You have someone who can be taken down but gets up right away, and someone who likes to take people down but doesn't really control them that well. And that's really what I think it comes down to, because on the feet, I think Bill Algeo has the volume, power, and pressure to really take advantage of someone like TJ Brown. So can TJ Brown take down Bill Algeo? Yes, but can he control him? I don't think so. Bill Algeo is able to get up very, very well. Has some very good scrambles and reverses as well with his black belt there. Algeo is very good on the mat. However, he can be taken down. And TJ Brown, he seems to be a primary wrestler. Averages 3.62 takedowns for 15 minutes at a 56% accuracy. He is a good wrestler. He just lacks that control time. So not only if you're not able to get that control time, but you're gassing yourself out in the prospect, as well as putting yourself in these precarious situations, because TJ Brown does leave his neck to be snatched up. He does put himself in some bad spots that I do think Algeo can take advantage of. All this adds up, leading me to believe Algeo should be the favorite here. Although his style is something that can be taken advantage of in the higher echelon division, I don't necessarily think TJ Brown is that higher level. I think Algeo is able to get up, tire out TJ Brown, win the striking exchanges, pressure him, tire him out, and capitalize off the mistakes of TJ Brown, winning in this fight here. I think Algeo wins at a high clip and is a decent DraftKings favorite. Flip side of things, TJ Brown, 7.4K. His path to victory is takedowns, split of control time, and takedowns. We've seen him land 6 takedowns in a fight before. I think if he wants to win this fight, he has to land up north of 5. And at 7.4K, if he wins this fight, he'll score very well. I'm not saying he does at a very high clip. I'm saying that if he does, it will score very well. So this is another fight I want some decent ownership of. Moving on to the main card now, 38-22 Clay Guida versus the 15-3 Rafa Garcia. This one's going to be a short one for me. Clay Guida's getting up there, and if it's not a matchup where Clay Guida can control someone, wrestle them consistently, tire them out, and look to finish them later, he's going to have problems, because not only is Clay Guida someone who's getting older and slower and less dynamic, but he makes mistakes. He can be hit. He gets hit very often, and sure, he's durable, but he can also be put in bad situations where he can be submitted. A lot of his losses are by submission. He makes these mistakes, and in this matchup here against someone who's younger, someone who I think is hungrier, someone who is training with the right people, in Rafa Garcia, I think Rafa Garcia is rightfully favored here. I think Garcia is able to contend in the wrestling. I think he's able to contend in the pace. But flip side of things, I think he's winning these striking exchanges, and I think he poses a lot more of a threat on the ground as well. Give me the younger fighter here. Give me the guy with more energy. Rafa Garcia is someone I think should win this fight at a high clip. With that being said, do you want to pay $9,500 for him? I mean, probably not too often, because his path to victory is probably on the feet. And sure, you can get a finish. Clay Guida also has the opportunity to not make you score that well, because if he's always shooting for a takedown, sure, you're able to fend them off, but you're not getting takedowns very right all that time. I think he is viable at 9.5. He's just not someone I'm running to roster. Moving on, 19-7 Pedro Munhoz versus the 19-3-2 gives Chris Gutierrez, and this is where things get dicey, because Chris Gutierrez is someone he's done very well, but is getting a huge step up in competition. I think Pedro Munhoz has taken a step down. Sure, Gutierrez is favored here, rightfully so. He's dangerous, a great striker, will have more volume. But Munhoz has been there with the best of the best. He's never been knocked down. He fought O'Malley really close for that, 6 minutes the fight lasted, and he's been able to contend with his higher echelon of division. He is a great striker in his own right, very good counter striking, a ton of power in his hands, but less volume. And I think that's why Gutierrez is favored. Gutierrez has that volume upside and has the ability to win these optics. However, when you're Gutierrez and you're going to draws with Cody Durden, or you're barely beating Corrales or Ewell, or really just facing the corpse of Edgar, this is a prove it to me spot. Munhoz is going to be that step up you need. Because Munhoz isn't perfect. He's not someone who is going to be contending for a belt anytime soon, but he has the ability to contend. He has power. He has good counter-striking. He has the ability to make things a bit dicey for these up-and-comers. And I wish Munhoz shot takedowns because that would help him out here. But in all reality, he does have the ability to win this matchup on the feet as well. I do think that this price tag is a bit wide. At plus 180, give me a bit of Pedro Munhoz. I think he's able to vet less in this. But I do think it's very close. I think the bet for me on Munhoz is just because the line's off. But we're going to go with the dog here. Unfortunately for the dog, although he's live to win this fight, I mean, he's never historically the best DraftKings scorer unless he's getting these knockouts or stuff like that. Because in his last decision win, he scored 67. He's able to be in these low volume affairs in one of these fights that are pretty poor scoring on DraftKings. So, and although he is someone who probably under 7.5K is the best shot of all the underdogs, in my opinion, he's not necessarily someone you need to roster in your lineup because his ceiling isn't that high. There are better options. There are better ways to build your GPP lineups, although I think in cash, he may be the go-to at 6.8. The official pick is going to be Pedro Munhoz. I think he's able to counter-strike and give a vet lesson to Chris Gutierrez, who's just taking that step up just a bit too soon. 14 fights, we're getting there. This one's going to be a bit shorter. Ian Cutelaba is 16-9-1, Tanner Boser 29-1, and it's pretty simple here because Ian Cutelaba is a much better fighter technically than Tanner Boser. Let's put it there. The styles make it so that Cutelaba is able to take down Boser, control him, and look to finish because he's going to be able to take down Boser and Boser can't get up. That's the end of the story here. Problem is, Boser has good cardio, Cutelaba does not. So does Cutelaba get him out of there or does he fade down the stretch? That's why this fight's 50-50. When it comes to picking a side, no money line side for me, no financial investment because of these uncertainties. However, when we're talking about DraftKings, there's only one person I'm looking to roster in these two, and that's Ian Cutelaba. When he wins, he's scoring 127, 118, 106, 89 points in a draw. I mean, this guy's style scores very well for DraftKings, and against a guy in Tanner Boser who has poor takedown defense, who can be controlled off his back, I think Cutelaba has that GPP upside you want to see. However, he's just not trustworthy after that 6-7 minute mark, and for that reason, I'm not going too heavy on him. That's why GPP, high risk, high reward. Other than that, I'll cheer for the Canadian, but I do think more DraftKings viability is on Cutelaba here. Moving on up, 12-0, Azamat Murzakanov versus the 18-6-1 Dustin Jacoby. Azamat Murzakanov undefeated, but barely. I think he's gotten some very opportunistic matchups. He looked very, very poor against Tafon Nchikwi until finding that Hail Mary knockout in the third round. I think he got a lesser version of Devin Clark when they fought, and he found an opportunistic knockout against Scheffel in the Contender Series. Dustin Jacoby's second stint in the UFC, and he's finally making things work. Since making his return to the UFC in 2020, he is 6-1-1, and you can really debate it. He'd be 7-0-1 here. That round one was a bit questionable, but just Jacoby is a great kickboxer. Terrific kickboxing, very physically imposing, good technicality, some good power as well, and he will be winning the striking exchange against Azamat Murzakanov. Problem is, in his losses, especially prior in the UFC, he was taken down. And sure, Murzakanov can be a grinder. He does look to have some decent control time and takedown upside. However, his takedown defense is improving. 58%. He's shown a decent get-up game, some decent defensive grappling as well. And again, that 58% is kind of skewed because Cutelaba landed 9 against him. He averages 5.58 strikes per minute, 60% striking defense. On the feet, this guy's a problem. Murzakanov, you have to think that he's a Russian. He's going to go out there, he's going to take him down, he's going to control him. However, he only has a 14% takedown accuracy. He's not someone who's going to go out there and grapple with much success. Sure, he landed one against Tafon, but I think he was kind of losing that fight, especially didn't live up to his price tag. So if I'm thinking to myself, Jacoby's going to win these minutes on the feet, he's going to be the better of the striking exchanges, he's going to have the opportunity to style Murzakanov and fend off the takedowns, shouldn't I be rostering him with DraftKings? Shouldn't I be betting him? Well, yeah, I'll be betting on him. I'm kind of surprised that the money came the other way. I will be betting just Jacoby, but because he is a kickboxer and Murzakanov seems to be decently durable, again, it's another one of these fights where if you're not getting me a finish, you're not getting takedowns, you're not getting knockdowns, are you going to score an 80-point decision like you did against Oles Jacek? Sometimes that doesn't become too optimal, 8.9K. Another one of these kickboxers who I think wins a lot of the time, but not the most DraftKings upside. Co-main event time, 22-11, Edson Barboza, 17-4, Billy Q. I'm going to talk about this one from purely a DraftKings perspective because betting-wise, big step up in competition. We've seen Quarantillo rocked, and I think that although Quarantillo should win this fight a lot of the time, I want such an investment on DraftKings that I don't know how much I want of his money line because I don't want to be, all my eggs in one basket kind of thing. So we're looking at this from a DraftKings perspective. Billy Quarantillo is at 8.7K. How do you attack this? Well, at 8.7K in his wins, he scored 125, 141, 109, 131, and 85. Billy Quarantillo is a workhorse. He will always go forward. He will throw at a ton of volume. He wants to break you down the stretch. And he's facing someone, Edmund Barboza, who is a guy who likes to play in range and doesn't like this pressure and also seems to be kind of waning in this part of his career. So in my opinion, this is a perfect matchup to really take advantage and target Billy Quarantillo on DraftKings. And I do think that Billy Quarantillo will be one of my top 2 players on DraftKings. This is because his ability to melt people down the stretch. He's going to walk straight at Edson Barboza, look to make some takedowns, throw a ton of combination, get up the cage, and try to tire out Edson Barboza, someone who looked tired against Giga, someone who melted a bit against Bryce Mitchell, someone who got dropped by Bryce Mitchell. Sorry. I think Billy Q breaks him here. And I love Edson Barboza, but this is not the best stylistic matchup. Edson Barboza likes this space to work where he's able to throw his spinning kicks, his hard leg kicks, and work from range. And I don't think he's going to get any space to breathe. I think Billy Quarantillo takes him down, beats him up, lets him get back up. You know what? Take you down again. Throw a ton of volume. For that reason, scores very well on DraftKings as well. I would not be surprised to see another 120, 130 point performance from Billy Quarantillo. He's a great DraftKings scorer, and I will be definitely rostering him in my lineups this week. Last but not least, we have the 23-7 Max Blessed Holloway versus the 19-1 Arnold Almighty Allen. And I'm really mad at myself because I didn't wear my Max Holloway merch today, and maybe that's a good thing because you guys already know who I'd be on this fight, but I think you guys already do. I'm a Max Holloway fan. There's no problem with me admitting it, and I want you guys to take this breakdown with a grain of salt because he's one of my favorite fighters. He's someone I cheer for. There's your disclaimer. And I do try to cap these fights with as little bias as I can. But in this case here, when you have the second best featherweight in the world right now, someone who is finally getting a matchup other than Volkanovski, against an up-and-comer who has dropped rounds to Nick Len, Sadiq Youssef, someone who is facing these lower level of competition, who we haven't seen him go 5 rounds. This is a vet lesson for Holloway because in this division, aside from Volkanovski, Holloway's been able to dispose of everybody. He's been able to dominate. I mean, he went out there and he brutalized the current interim champion, Yair Rodriguez. He broke the record for most strikes landed against Calvin Kattar. Max Holloway is a guy who breaks people, and Volkanovski displayed incredible fighting talent. And Volkanovski, we're not talking about Volkanovski here because he is great. He did exactly what he had to do against Max Holloway, but Arnold Allen is not Max Holloway. Yes, Arnold Allen is 10-fight win streak in the UFC, someone who is boasting a great record and on a good run, and someone who's going to contend because he's so young. But in a lot of these fights, he's dropping rounds or he's winning come-from-behind victories. I mean, come-from-behind sub against Omar's very first fight. Sure, he's grown since then. Let's talk about the round he dropped against Youssef, or the fact that I don't think that he wins that fight if he doesn't get those knockdowns against Youssef there. To be able to knock down Holloway? Probably not. So when we're coming in here and we're saying Max Holloway is the favorite, I have to agree. Because sure, Arnold Allen has power, and he has some decent technicality, and he's decent white ties, if he's kickboxing. He's also a madman. And the way he beat Dan Hooker was going balls to the wall and trying to knock him out. And sure, Hooker got the worst of it. But if you do that against Max Holloway, you're going to struggle. Because Max Holloway not only has the technicality and the accuracy to take advantage of that, but he has the durability, the cardio, and the experience to really take advantage of a spot like this and succeed. Sure, his chin's going to break one day, and this could be it. But until I see it happen, why would I bank on that? Max Holloway has more output than anybody in this division, but than anybody in the world. He averages 7.24 strikes landed per minute, as well as an 84% takedown defense. So if you're giving me a 25-minute kickboxing bout with someone with the height, reach, technicality, and most important, experience of Max Holloway, I gotta take him here. All credit to Allen. He'll have his dues one day, but this is his final big step up. He had to step up against Kattar, but Kattar got hurt, so we never really saw that fight play out. Instead, now we get a beast like Max Holloway who will really test your cardio, test your durability, test your ability to want to be in that cage. Because for 25 minutes, Max Holloway will walk forward and he will hit you for a lot of times. And that's not going to be fun for Arnold Allen. I do think Max Holloway is able to get a later finish or dominate on the scorecards again. I'm picking Max Holloway. I'll probably end up betting him. That's my breakdown with a grain of salt. Okay? DraftKings wise, you kind of got to have Max Holloway because he's the same guy, put up 153 points against Rodriguez. And guess what, guys? I'm not making this up. 209 points against Calvin Kattar. I'm going to put it right here because that's incredible. Is that the highest score of all time? Someone fact check me, please, on that. But even aside from that, if we take away the Volkanovski fights, 153 against Rodriguez, 209 against Kattar, sure, 82 against Edgar, wrestler, it's fine. Ortega, 163. Aldo, 117. Aldo, 105. This guy's DraftKings gold as well. And at 9K against someone who will stand and bang for 25 minutes, I'm going to take him again. And he is going to be up there with Quarantillo as my 2 highest owned fighters this week. Flip side of things, if Arnold Allen is the truth, if he is someone who's finally going to throw in Holloway and send him spiraling down, it's going to score well. And at 7.2K, especially in a 15-minute affair with as much volume, I'd stack this fight. I'd play some Arnold Allen as an underdog just because he has the ability to throw volume for 25 minutes and score decent. So this is a fight I want a ton of ownership on DraftKings. Once again, Holloway is my preferred play here. Him and Quarantillo, my two biggest DraftKings play, and I will be betting Holloway as well. Maybe sprinkle some round 5 decision as well. It should be a very, very fun fight, but until I see that shin cracked of Holloway, and unless your name's Volkanovski, I got to side with the Blessed Express here. Give me Max Holloway all day. That's going to do it for me here on the Plays and Fades YouTube channel. Quickly, I'm just going to go through my quick picks. To start things off, I'm taking Lucy Pudilova, I'm taking Gaston Bolanos, I'm taking Bruna Brazil, Daniel Zellhuber, Julian Robertson, Zach Cummings, but come on. We're taking Mateus Nicolau, we're taking Bill Algeo, Rafa Garcia, Pedro Munhoz, Ian Cutelaba, actually, although I'm cheering for the Canadian and Tanner Boser. We're taking Dustin Jacoby, Billy Quarantillo, and Max Holloway. DraftKings-wise, like I said 1,000 times, Holloway and Quarantillo, my two highest owned plays. I also really like Cutelaba and Robertson on DraftKings in terms of GPP. Underdog-wise, is a lot of GPP underdogs, but if you're looking for cash underdogs, Allen, Munhoz, Vannata maybe are decent in cash, and then GPP, there's a ton of them. Brown's a huge dart throw, Royval is a huge dart throw, and so is Ed Herman. But hopefully everything I've said throughout this video has gone out there and helped you guys win some money this weekend. This might be a longer video, I apologize if so. 14 fights and some very, very good ones I want to talk through, but please, everybody hit the like button down below, subscribe to the channel. If you have any more questions, DM me on Twitter, @GamblesGordo, @GordoGambles, whatever way around. Ask me some questions there, I'd be happy to answer them. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions either. I'll be happy to talk those fights with you guys. And with that, enjoy the card this weekend, and let's make some money, guys.